Randy Rhoads was born December 6, 1956 in Santa Monica, California. Both of his parents were music teachers and he was the youngest of 3 children. At age 16, he and his friend Callie Garney formed a band named Little Women that eventually became known as Quiet Riot. Ozzy Osbourne was forming a new band, and Rhoads was talked into trying out for the lead guitar position by his friend Dana Strum. Dana kept pushing him to try out, so Rhoads finally agreed to try out in order to get Strum off his back. In September 1979, Rhoads went to a studio in Los Angeles. He played some riffs for Osbourne, and Osbourne hired him immediately. The new band was formed, and their first album was known as The Blizzard of Oz. They went on tour after the making of their second album, Diary of a Madman. The first leg of their tour had 55 concert dates that went from November 1st, 1981 to March 6, 1982. The second leg of their tour had 46 dates planned from March 17, 1982 to May 31st, 1982. Wednesday, March 17th was the first show of their second leg, and it was in Atlanta, Georgia. The second show was on Thursday, March 18, 1982 at the Civic Coliseum in Knoxville, Tennessee, right here. After the show, they boarded their tour bus and headed for their next location at the Tangerine Bowl in Orlando, Florida. Today, it is known as Camping World Stadium, right here. Their next show was scheduled for Friday, March 19th. On the way, the air conditioning unit on the tour bus malfunctioned, so the driver made a stop at the Flying Baron Estates in Leesburg, Florida, which was along the path to their next show, right here. This was a property owned by the Calhoun Brothers Tour Bus Company. As you can see in this older photo, there are buses on the property. This place was set up for bus maintenance, and they could fix the air conditioner. It was also a private airport for the residents that lived around the runway. At the time, there were 3 houses there, and it is said one of the houses belonged to Andrew Aycock, the tour bus driver. When some of the tour members arrived on Thursday, March 18th, tour bus driver Andrew Aycock, who had a private pilot's license, took a single-engine Beechcraft F-35 Bonanza without permission. Andy Aycock asked the band manager, Jake Duncan, and keyboardist Don Airy if they wanted to go with him. It seemed innocent enough to them, so they went with him. According to Jake Duncan, Aycock buzzed the bus several times in an attempt to wake up drummer Tommy Aldridge. They then landed safely. Andrew Aycock decided to go for a second flight. This time he had Randy Rhoads on board with makeup artist, hairdresser, and seamstress Rachel Youngblood. It is said that Rachel Youngblood had a heart condition, and Andrew Aycock told her he was just going to circle the property a couple of times and not do anything crazy. Randy Rhoads was afraid of flying, but when he heard what Aycock said to Youngblood, he decided he would go along to get some aerial photos with his camera. Andrew Aycock, not being true to his word, decided to buzz the tour bus. He made 3 passes at the bus. The first 2 were uneventful. On his third pass, about 10 a.m., the plane made a pattern similar to this yellow line. As it approached the bus, it was in a left turn position only a few feet above the ground, approximately 2 meters. As it flew past the bus, the left wingtip hit the right side of the bus about 1/3 of the way back from the front. The aircraft cartwheeled across the lawn, hit a pine tree about right here, crashed into this garage, and burst into flames. All 3 passengers were killed instantly. Keyboardist Don Airy was the only band member to witness the crash. This is what he said: "I had my camera and was taking photos of the plane to give to Randy afterwards. I had my telephoto lens on, and I could tell that there was some sort of struggle going on board the plane. The wings were rapidly tipping from side to side. At one point, the plane almost became perpendicular, no more than 6 feet off the ground. That's when I put down my camera and saw the plane right in front of me. I quickly crouched to avoid getting hit and looked over my shoulder and watched it clip the bus, crash into the tree, and explode on impact into the garage." Bass player Rudy Sarzo, who was inside the bus, said he got up trying to figure out what had happened and looked out the big hole in the bus the wing had made. Through the hole, he could see tour manager Jake Duncan outside rocking back and forth on the ground, screaming, "They're gone, they're gone." The National Transportation Safety Board's findings said the crash was due to poor judgment by the pilot. He misjudged the clearance needed to avoid the bus while buzzing the field. He also took the plane without permission, which the NTSB labeled as stolen aircraft. Ozzy Osbourne said the bus driver was doing cocaine all night the night before the crash. The autopsy showed Andrew Aycock tested positive for cocaine. The NTSB said Aycock did not have a current medical certificate to legally fly. Today, a third-class medical certificate is good for 5 years for pilots who are under the age of 40. In the late 70s and early 80s, a third-class medical certificate had to be renewed every year. Andrew Aycock was 33 years old, and his last medical certificate was dated November 16, 1979. He should have renewed it by November 16, 1980. He was 16 months out of compliance at the time of the crash, which technically made it illegal for him to operate the aircraft as pilot in command. It is said he also had not had a biannual flight review, which is required to remain current. Later, it was found out that Aycock had been the pilot in command in another plane crash in 1976 that resulted in the death of a passenger while flying in the United Arab Emirates. Andrew Aycock was using cocaine the night before the crash. He stole an airplane to entertain members of the crew and the band. He was out of compliance with his medical certificate. He had not had a biannual flight review, and he had been the pilot in another fatal plane crash 6 years earlier. As a result, 25-year-old Randy Rhoads, 58-year-old Rachel Youngblood lost their lives due to this chain of poor decisions made by the pilot, 33-year-old Andrew Aycock. After the garage burst into flames, the house also caught fire and a large percentage of it was burned down. However, nobody on the ground or in the house was hurt. The 3 passengers were burned beyond recognition. Youngblood and Aycock were identified through dental records, and Rhoads was identified through his jewelry. Rachel Youngblood was buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park, Hollywood Hills, Los Angeles County, California. Andrew Aycock was buried at Rose Hill Cemetery, Kissimmee, Osceola County, Florida. Randy Rhoads was buried at Mountain View Cemetery in San Bernardino, California. It is said that fans gather at Rhoads' gravesite every year on the anniversary of his death, March 18th, to celebrate his life and his musical contributions to the world of rock and roll. So there you have it. A brief explanation of the airplane crash that took the lives of Rachel Youngblood, Randy Rhoads, and Andrew Aycock right here on the Forrest Haggerty channel.